Hey, you. Yes, you. Have you ever sat down and thought to yourself, man, I really wish I had a list of the most accurate dinosaurs in Jurassic World Evolution 3 because I want to make a park that is like an accurate, like a paleontologically accurate park. Well, think no more because that's exactly what this video is. I have compiled all of the dinosaurs and other extinct creatures that I believe are the most accurate in the game. Now, of course, there are some other contenders out there, and some of you might disagree with some of my picks, but this is all mainly just my opinion. So without further ado, let's just get into the video. Now, first up, let's take a look at the dinosaurs. Starting off with the Austroraptor. So the Austroraptor is just, and of course it's going down to sleep right now while we're talking about it, perfect timing. But the Austroraptor is of course a new addition to the game, and I just think it is fantastic. Now, first of all, it does have feathers, which is something that Austroraptor most likely did have in life. The coverage of the feathers also seems to be pretty darn good. Like if you look at the arms, for example, the feathers mostly cover the whole arm as well as the most of the hand. Though I will say that it seems like the middle finger is not covered nearly as much as it probably should be. Like, it likely should be covered a little bit more than that, but that's mostly just a nitpick. Honestly, you could probably point out a fair amount of nitpicks on basically every single model that we're going to take a look at, so that's not really going to diminish its overall quality, because still, everything else about this looks, oh my gosh, everything about this just looks really good, if you ask me, especially when you look at the skull, for example. Now, the skull has everything that you'd expect from an Austroraptor skull, mostly with the snout. It's very shallow, very elongated, a thin snout, and you can't really see it too much, but it does seem like they do have relatively straight and conical teeth that lack serrations, which is something that Austroraptor did have in life, and the arms are proportionally shorter. So all of these things looked at together lead to the possibility that Austroraptor was a piscivorous dinosaur, which meant that it ate fish. It's just an all-around beautiful model, and the feathers look gorgeous. Everything about it just looks flat out gorgeous. So it's a great start to the list, if you ask me. Next up is Coelophysis. Now, I've always really liked this Coelophysis design, like ever since it was introduced in Jurassic World Evolution 2, because I just look at it and I just think to myself, that's pretty much how I would expect a Coelophysis to look. It is a fairly accurate design in its overall skeletal anatomy. Even its arms are facing the proper direction, which the Osteoraptor's, its arms were facing the proper direction too. I just didn't mention it there. But it is like overall very slender. It has an S-like thin neck and an elongated thinner snout. Now there are two different morphs known for Coelophysis. There is the robust morph and there is the gracile morph. The robust morph is a little bit more bulky, has like a bulkier neck and things like that, whereas the gracile morph is a little bit more slender, kind of like how it's portrayed right here. So I'd say that these fellas were mostly based off of the slender morph, which of course is accurate. Now, one thing that I would absolutely love to see, but it's not really not against its accuracy, would be feathers. Now, we don't know for sure if feathers were present on Coelophysis, but it certainly is possible that they were. It's actually possible that most early dinosaurs had some type of feathering. That's growing more and more likely the more we learn about Dinosauria as a whole. So right now it's not inaccurate to portray them without feathers. It's just as accurate to portray them with feathers as it is without them. So feathers would have certainly been cool to see, but again, it's not really a dig at the accuracy. The male Coelophysis actually has like these little quills on top of his head, which is it's a step in that direction, which is very cool. But again, we don't know for sure if Coelophysis had that. It just, in my own personal mind, that would have been really cool to see. After that, we have the relatively small Carcharodontosaurid, of course, known as Concavinator. We got both of them right here. I love the Concavinator design so flippin' much. It was like one of my favorite designs in Jurassic World Evolution 2, and that remains to be true in Evolution 3, because just look at this son of a gun. Look at them. Oh, they're so cool. So they got like the proper Carcharodontosaurid head. Again, the hands are facing the correct way. The whole body proportions seem to be pretty on point. And it does have the hump-like structure at the hips. Now, one question I always get in regards to Concavinator is, did it have a sail? Like, did it have a full sail that like covered most of its back, kind of similar to a Spinosaurid. And it did not. The reason why we know that is because we have a fairly complete skeleton. And the skeleton shows us that there was only tall, narrow spines over here, and they were not present over here, which means that it didn't have a sail that was similar to a Spinosaur's sail. A lot of times when I mention that Concavinator had tall, narrow spines over here, people are like, oh, what if we're reconstructing it wrong and it had like a sail over there? Now, of course, the soft tissue could have extended down here a little bit and it could have extended over there, but structurally, this would have been very different from the sail that you see on like Spinosaurus, for example. One cool thing they included was these little quills or quill-like structures on its arm. Now, there's a possibility that Concavinator did have that because the fossils show that there might be little quill knobs on their arms, which are attachment points for like quills or for feathers. But it's also possible that those are simply just muscle attachment points. So the jury's still out on that one. But it's still cool that Frontier included it, as well as including them on the neck up here. Just really makes it look different. It makes it look distinct compared to a lot of the other creatures in the game. And even though it already looked distinct with that weird structure back here, but it's such a good design. I love it so much. After that, we have everybody's favorite ornithomimosaur, the Dinosaurus. Dinosaurus is a great one, man. Look at this. It's huge, it's bulky, it has the hump on its back, it's got a relatively long neck, it's got its huge and powerful arms, and the head shape is pretty much correct, as you can see right here. My one gripe with it, because like I said, I could probably find nitpicks with all of them, is the fact that you can't really make out the beak too well. Like, it is a different texture than the rest of it, like the rest of its face. Like, you got scales over here, and then you got like a keratinous texture over here, but they blend together so much that you wouldn't even notice that it has a small beak. So it kind of looks like it's all just soft tissue. That's my one gripe, but again, it's really not too big of a deal. The arms look great. They're huge. They got these huge claws. The hands are quite terrible, because terrible in a good way, because of the fact that Dinosaurus translates to terrible hand. It was named for its hands because those hands looked like they would have been. They're just like, they're very terrifying looking hands, and they captured that quite well. They're, again, huge 3 fingers and huge claws to boot. Now, there's also the elephant in the room, feathers. Did Dinosaurus have feathers? It probably did. There's a good chance that Dinosaurus did have feathers. It is an ornithomimosaur, and it seems likely that all of Ornithomimosauria would have some type of feathering. And the last few tail vertebrae are actually fused together, which is usually something that you would see in animals that have a tail fan. In fact, Frontier actually gave it a tail fan right here, which is a nice attention to detail. So yeah, they probably had feathers, but the exact extent of the feathers is not quite known. They are a large animal that would have lived in a warm environment, so maybe they had more so sparse feathering towards the top of their body, but even that's not too known. But again, they most likely did have some type of feathering. And then we have this handsome fella right here. This is Guanlong. Words can't describe just how good that looks. Guanlong is a very cool addition to the game. It's it's an early Tyrannosauroid. That means it's in the same superfamily as Tyrannosaurus Rex. But obviously it's not in the same family. So it is closely related to T-Rex, just not too closely, if that makes sense. It's like a distant cousin, so to speak. It looks so good right here. And it's always like a great thing to bring up because of how different early Tyrannosauroids, like these early Proceratosaurid Tyrannosauroids, looked from the later, more derived Tyrannosaurids. Because, you got like these proportionally long arms with huge three-fingered claws. You have like a relatively small head, and of course you have a defined, very noticeable crest on its nose. I also really like the inclusion of feathers. It most likely did have feathers, so that is a great addition, and everything just looks fantastic. And some of these colors that you can give them, like, come on, that red right there and all of the yellows and reds up here, it's just perfect. I love it. Such a good model right here. After that, we have my favorite Spinosaurid in the game, and probably one of my favorite dinosaurs in the game, Irritator. So now Irritator is a tricky one because it is a fragmentary dinosaur, unfortunately. The best fossil that speaks for it is a piece of the skull. Like the skull kind of goes, like starts from here and then goes over here. So we're missing the tip of the snout. There is a Spinosaurid snout that might belong to Irritator, but that's not known. So we're not going to go off of that. We're also missing most of the postcranial elements, like the rest of the skeleton back here. Again, other fossils have been found that might belong to Irritator, but Irritator was so fragmentary in the beginning, that's just hard to say. So we don't know for sure. That means that there was a lot of room for creative liberties in Frontier's Irritator design, and I think they did a really solid job at portraying it in a way that felt relatively grounded and in a lot of ways understandable. Like, I understand why they included some of the elements that they included. My one gripe is that there's not really much of a pelican pouch under here. Now, of course, we don't know for sure if Irritator had a pelican pouch, but the fact that its lower jaw is able to open out laterally towards the side might imply that it did open up for like larger fish or something like that. So it would have been cool to see maybe a little bit of a larger throat to kind of like reference that. I'm not saying they had to animate it, but maybe just something that referenced it. That's my one gripe with this design because everything else looks good. All of this right here, which is the skull that we know about, looks good. You know, it's got the proper shape. It's got a huge nostril because it was noted that Irritator does have a pretty large nares, which is, the nasal opening. And it does have a crest up here. Irritator did have a crest. We just don't know the exact size and shape of it. Now, the tip of the snout, they went for more of like a blocky shape, which is what most artists do. So that's a fine interpretation. And it does have lips as well, which just is awesome because it's likely that at the very least, a decent amount of Spinosaurids had some type of oral tissue, that being lips. The arms look great. They're all huge and bulky like a proper Spinosaurid arm. And on the back, Frontier did decide to include tall, narrow spines, which is completely understandable given the fact that that seems to be pretty common in Spinosaurids. So there's a good chance that Irritator might have had something like this. They didn't stop there. They included like the tall, narrow spines and the long chevrons in the tail, which is something that Spinosaurus has, but as of right now, we don't know if any other Spinosaurids had something like that, but Irritator might have. Again, it's very fragmentary. So yeah, I think the Frontier did a good job at portraying the animal in a way that felt grounded and in a lot of ways realistic. And so by extension, it feels like it could potentially be accurate. Again, I just wish that we saw that pelican pouch right here, though, who knows what we learn about that in the future. Maybe Irritator didn't have one, so maybe them not including it would have been for the better, or maybe it would have been for the worse. Only time will tell. That was a lot to say about Irritator. Next, let's go to a beautiful looking ceratopsian, that being Loki Ceratops here. We'll look at this one because she's standing. So yeah, the Loki Ceratops looks fantastic. I love it so much. Everything is pretty much accurate. Like, aside from maybe the posture, that might be a little bit inaccurate. Everything else looks really good, especially in the head. So you do have these two brow horns that kind of curve out to the side. That's why Loki Ceratops got its name. It's kind of similar to the the horned helmet of Loki. So Loki Ceratops translates to Loki horned face. You also have these epiccipitals up here, these two spikes that are asymmetrical. That's exactly how it is on the Loki Ceratops specimen that was discovered. So at the very least, that individual was asymmetrical. I don't know if that means that all Loki Ceratops would have been at least this asymmetrical, like maybe some of them had some variation in that. It's an interesting thought, but they applied it to all of them. Of course, every single model has the same type of asymmetry, except it's a little bit larger in the male variant, because this is a male variant right here. But even like the feet are pretty much correct for the most part. And the reason why I mention that is because ceratopsian feet are very frequently not done correctly. Oftentimes they're just done as elephant feet. This is pretty much what a ceratopsian's foot looked like. You have three main toes that have their nails on them, or their hooves on them, whatever you want to call them. And then you have two vestigial toes over here that don't have those same nails. And then on the back, you got just four main toes. So yeah, that is good. And you have like this large schnoz. It's just such a cool inclusion, especially considering the fact that Loki Ceratops is a somewhat recent discovery. So it's amazing to see it in the game. Also, it has the proportionally short tail. Ceratopsians are just awesome. From there, we have Muttaburrasaurus right here. So I really like the Muttaburrasaurus. I also really liked it in Jurassic World Evolution 1 and 2, though in Evolution 1, they made it quadrupedal, if I remember correctly, which is not really too correct. It seems likely that Muttaburrasaurus was mostly bipedal, only going down on all four legs every so often to get a drink or to eat some water. They fixed that in Evolution 2 and 3, and as you can see right here, it is a bipedal dinosaur. So I love the fact that they did that. All of the proportions seem pretty close at the very least. And maybe it needs a little bit more of a beefier neck, but even that's really not too far off. And the head is like the best part about it because, that's like the most significant part about Muttaburrasaurus is this really developed schnoz over here. The skull shows that the nasal portion of Muttaburrasaurus was incredibly developed and like pretty large in general. And it's likely that it had soft tissue covering it in a way like this, of course. So it's thought that maybe that nose was used to amplify noises, something that was shown off in Walking with Dinosaurs, the original one. And I like the fact that you can see it right here. In the other, and you can give it some brighter coloration, I believe, depending on the male or female variation, but it's still so cool to see it. I always really liked the Muttaburrasaurus design. Then, my friends, we have Ornithomimus right here. Oh my gosh, I love the Ornithomimus so much. The Ornithomimus is just gorgeous. It's so great to finally see a feathered ornithomimid in the game because we just hadn't had that beforehand. Because Deinocheirus is not, it's not an ornithomimid. Deinocheirus is an ornithomimosaur, not an ornithomimid, okay? But yeah, no, this was the first actual ornithomimid that has feathers. Archaeornithomimus, Gallimimus, Struthiomimus, none of them had feathers. And it was always so like, ugh. So seeing Ornithomimus in all of its feathered glory is just absolutely beautiful. And the feathers look gorgeous too. It's especially fitting for Ornithomimus because, all of Ornithomimidae likely had feathers, but I believe that we actually have direct evidence of Ornithomimus specifically like having feathers. So yeah, it definitely did, and other close relatives did as well. Now, all the proportions also seem pretty good, especially with this really long foot right here. They do have like some shockingly like long feet that you can see right there. You also have the tail fan back here and just a nice texturing in the feathers. Head shape looks pretty good too. The arms look pretty good. They're all covered up in their feathers. It's a gorgeous model. Again, I'm just so happy that, we actually have a feathered ornithomimid in the game. Just makes my heart happy, I love me some feathered ornithomimids. And then from there, we'll take a look at a sauropod, that being Patagotitan over here. Now, personally, I think that this is the best titanosaur that has been made in Jurassic World Evolution, because obviously we got Alamosaurus in Evolution 2, and I didn't think it looked that great. I wasn't a big fan of it. And then we've always had Dreadnoughtus. Frontier had their own model, and it looked all right. But, and then Dominion released their version of Dreadnoughtus, and it looks okay. But this Patagotitan actually looks a lot like a titanosaur, especially with its posture. That is like a proper titanosaur posture, the way that the tail looks, even the way that the limbs look. Because you'll notice right here, it's essentially just like a solid pillar. That's exactly how it was on Titanosaur sauropods, their front limbs anyway. Their back limbs, they had these like, you can't see it too well here. Maybe I can get a good shot. Yeah, you can see the those very weird looking toes that kind of curve off to the side. So yeah, it's all proper in that department. It even has osteoderms right here, which is something that is pretty possible for Patagotitan. And you got this really thick neck too. Just everything that really screams Titanosaur sauropod. So it's probably my favorite sauropod in all of evolution in general. Now we have more ceratopsians to take a look at. Like these gorgeous animals right here. Here, try to get in the light a little bit more. Yeah, Protoceratops. Man, just look at it. Just look at it. Like, this is almost on par with like a prehistoric kingdom version of the animal. The head shape is pretty good. The frill shape is also pretty good. You have the jugal structure right here. You got a nice looking beak. The limbs all look really good too. The size seems correct. And for the most part, the tail is decently correct. Protoceratops actually has a very strange looking tail. A lot of times people only like single out Spinosaurus for having a weird tail, but Protoceratops definitely did too. In a lot of ways, Protoceratops had a paddle-like tail as well. It's not nearly as defined right here. Like maybe it should be a little bit more broad, but that's fairly close right there with that shape. And there is a little bit of speculation that they placed in the model, that being these bristles right here. We don't know if Protoceratops had that, but it is possible because another ceratopsian, another small ceratopsian has been found with that very thing. So yeah, it's a possibility. We just don't know for sure. Everything about this is just beautiful though. But speaking about that other ceratopsian that actually has the bristles, where are you? There they are, the little Psittacosaurs. So Psittacosaurus is one of the best known dinosaurs in the fact that we just have a really good idea of what it looked like in life. A very well preserved Psittacosaurus specimen was discovered that revealed like the type of counter shading it had. It revealed the coloration it had. It revealed that it had those bristles on the tail. That is accurate. Psittacosaurus did have that. It revealed the cloaca of the animal, which actually offers a lot of insight about that specific structure on dinosaurs, because as of right now, that is like the only cloaca that's known, like the only preserved cloaca, which is huge. It's a little bit silly, but it's huge. I don't think they have it. They don't have it. So it's not too incredibly accurate. It's not like perfect. I'm pretty sure that Prehistoric Kingdom actually has the cloaca. So of course that is accurate. But it's not present here. Anyway, everything else is accurate. You can even give it colors that are fairly close to the coloration that it would have had in life. And it even seems to have the correct sort of texturing in the scales, like in the certain spots that it was specifically textured in a certain way, if that makes sense. But yeah, knowing it has the proper counter shading too, where it's like more of a gradient style counter shading, leading from this solid coloration down here, slowly transitioning into this solid coloration up here, which is the type of counter shading that would have been really good in a forested environment. So it's likely that Psittacosaurus lived in a forest, which is just really cool stuff. And you also have these jugal structures over here. So overall, it is a really, really nice model. And, you know, it's hard to get Psittacosaurus wrong because of how much we know about its overall appearance. So it doesn't surprise me at all that it looks this good. I also really like the way that they did those bristles. Like on the male right here, that's a really interesting coloration. Then one of the original ceratopsians is Styracosaurus over here. So, you know, I always thought that it looked like one of the better ceratopsians in the game. Certainly not, like, it's definitely not the best now. I think that mostly, as far as like larger ceratopsians go, I think that title might go to Lokiceratops. But it's still not a bad design. Like, the proportions look like a ceratopsian. The head shape looks really good too. You have all of these episcipitals up here, the epiparietal, episquamosal structures, and then you have the nasal horn right here. You got the beak. The head shape looks pretty good too. The feet are not too incredibly accurate. They're closer than other ceratopsians, but they're still, like, these are not nearly as vestigial as they should be, for example. They should be hanging off the back as opposed to being other toes that were being used. So that's not too accurate. And I'd say that the nasal horn is a little bit too small. I know this is the female variant and the male has a larger horn, but I feel like it should probably be larger than that because the nasal horn that we have on the fossil is already pretty large, like the fossils that are available. And that's just the bony core. The keratin didn't fossilize, so the actual keratin would have formed a much larger structure than what that bony core would suggest. So I think that it probably, they could have made it a little bit larger than that. But that aside, I think that it all just looks really good, and it still very much looks like a Styracosaurus, which I could not ask for more. And then another amazing Spinosaurid that, oh no, what's going on here? We got a Spinosaurid going up against a Proceratosaurid Tyrannosauroid. Wait your turn, you Tyrannus. Wait your turn. But yeah, we got this Spinosaurid over here, this Suchomimus, that has always looked really good. You know, ever since the first game, it's been like a really fantastic model that just looks a lot like a Spinosaurid. Like, look at how thin and like just narrow this snout is. It's accurate in that department. Like, especially when you look at it head on, that is pretty much how thin Suchomimus's skull or snout is. It also has the tall, narrow spines back here, and it has a lot of, like, a huge size. My biggest gripe anyway, is just how small those arms are, which is kind of ironic for Suchomimus because Suchomimus just had huge, huge arms with, like, huge thumb claws. These just seem a little bit too thin and maybe just a bit too short. especially when you look at it compared to Irritator, who was given much larger arms proportionally. So I think that if they were to ever tweak anything about the Suchomimus model, that's what they should tweak. I think those arms should be just a little bit bigger. If nothing else, a little bit more muscular, and maybe just increase the size of those claws. But that aside, again, it's just a fantastic model, and I've always just really liked it. It's always been one of my favorite Spinosaurs in the game. One of my favorites to use, that's for sure. Then over here, we have Utahraptor. Now, I've always sung Utahraptor's praises in this game, so you guys have probably heard it all before, but it's just, look at it. It is a solid design. It's incredibly robust, incredibly bulky, just like the real-life animal. It's got feathers. The skull shape seems to be pretty good. You can give it some really cool some really cool colors. The hands are mostly covered down here. It has the huge, enormous sickle claw. It's a gorgeous design, and both the female and the male variants are like just really solid interpretations of Utahraptor. Like, look at that. Just a very bulky Dromaeosaur, the largest one that we know of right now. There's possibly another one that's larger, but yeah, no, this one is absolutely huge, if you ask me, but it's such a good design. And then last, but certainly not least, as far as the dinosaurs go, is Yutyrannus, the largest dinosaur with direct fossil evidence of having feathers. Now, like I've mentioned before, there are other dinosaurs that are suspected to have feathers, like, hint, hint, Dinochirus over there. But we don't actually have any evidence, like direct fossil evidence that suggests the Dinochirus had feathers. I.e., we don't have any like feather imprints of feathers being present with Dinochirus. We do have feather imprints for Yutyrannus. So that means Yutyrannus is essentially confirmed to have feathers. And of course, Frontier gave it feathers, which is great. You know, it'd be so weird to see it without feathers. The skull is also a huge standout. Like, this skull was done very nicely. The shape of it looks incredible. The lips look great. You got a really nice nasal structure up here, and you have these lacrimal crests over here. The arms are long, and you have like 3 huge and powerful claws. Biggest gripe is the lack of a stomach. It's like really short. Should be a little bit more elongated than that, but that's a nitpick. Everything else looks beautiful about it. So that is all of the dinosaurs. But as you know, there are more than just dinosaurs in this game, and there are some of those non-dinosaurs that are fairly accurate, like the flying reptiles, i.e. pterosaurs, and all of the swimming creatures. So first, we'll take a look at the pterosaurs. Now, I would put J.Holopterus in here if I had one, because as you know, J.Holopterus didn't make the cut. It's not in Jurassic World Evolution 3, but it would be in here. Hopefully one day. Hopefully one day they add it, because it's just, I love Neurognathids, and that is such a good Neurognathed design. But we'll take a look at the ones that we do have that still look really good, like Thanatus Draken. Thanatus Draken looks gorgeous. We don't know much about what Thanatus Draken looked like. It is a fragmentary pterosaur, but it looks like, to me, they mainly just based it off of other Asdarchids, which is fair. That's a fair thing to do. A lot of artists will do that to reconstruct an animal that is pretty fragmentary. So it makes sense that they did that. And it looks a lot like an Asdarchid with the way that the beak looks and the way that this crest looks and all of the proportions. I think that it looks solid in that department. It also does have feathers, aka pycnofibers, but they're essentially feathers. It's a great design. The same can be said for Kayuajara. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about behaviors in this. I'm mainly just talking about the designs. But it's so weird to me that it eats, what is it? It eats fish, right? Kayuajara was an herbivorous pterosaur, so it's a bit strange to me. Anyway, the design itself looks really good. You know, it's got the nice feathers. It's got this beautiful looking crest. The beak looks amazing. And I also really like the way that the eyes look. Look at that. Oh my gosh, you can see the reflection in the eye. How have I never noticed that before? That's kind of insane. Nice detail. Or maybe that's like a basic detail. I don't know. Obviously, the crest is different on the male and female variants. I believe that one we were just looking at is the female variant. And then this one right here is the male with a larger crest that looks very beautiful. And then over here, we have the Quetzalcoatlus. So, yeah, I always really liked the way that Quetzalcoatlus looked in Dominion. It's not a perfect design. It's not, 100% accurate. It's like oversized. A lot of the proportions are off, yada, yada, yada. But I think it's close enough to be considered a decently accurate portrayal of a Quetzalcoatlus, because you do have all of the things that make that animal a Quetzalcoatlus. The You got the, you know, the pycnofibers over here. You got a crest up here. You got that long beak. You know, a huge wingspan and all of that other stuff. That's how I think they should often like reconstruct these dinosaurs in the Jurassic franchise. Is just like use accuracy as the basis or as a starting point, and then just build off from that. That would be a phenomenal way to do it, and that's what it feels like they did with this Quetzalcoatlus. I don't know for sure, but that's what it seems like because it just looks good. You know, it's a very good portrayal. So that's the pterosaurs. Those are the pterosaurs that I think are the best, or the most accurate, rather. Now we have the aquatic critters, starting off with this beautiful looking pliosaur, Chronosaurus. Way better than the Liopleurodon of the last game. Just looks good. You can give it like the coloration that Liopleurodon had in Walking with Dinosaurs, which is cool. The head shape looks properly like a pliosaur head shape, and the flippers look really good. Everything about it just looks great. It's all streamlined and everything. I like it. We also do have Megalodon. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty of what exactly Megalodon looked like. This is a fine depiction, if you ask me. It's like a fine interpretation of it. I like how you can give it different coloration, which is something that helps set it apart from, say, a great white shark. It's good. You know, I like it. And then, lastly, but certainly not leastly, we have Ichthyosaurus. And what can I really say about it? It looks like Ichthyosaurus. I mean, I think that Ichthyosaurus would be kind of difficult to get wrong, but they nailed it. You know, it looks like a reptilian dolphin in a way. So it looks great. I like it. So yeah, those are my picks for some of the most accurate animals in the game. Now, yes, there's probably way more that you can include. Like for the aquatics, for example, you could probably include Dunkleosteus because that head is accurate. You know, all we have of Dunkleosteus is the head, so it makes sense that they were able to make it so good. The rest of the body is not accurate though because it's a little bit too long. Newer estimates make it so that Dunkleosteus was significantly shorter than how it's portrayed right here. You could probably say Plesiosaur, though, maybe. Like, the Plesiosaur is not bad. I'd say that its head is a bit too snake-like, though. They're not that related to snakes, so that's something that really throws me off. But Adamborosaurus is also pretty decent. And the same goes for some dinosaurs. Like, I'm sure you can choose some dinosaurs that are fairly accurate and pretty close. Like, Carnotaurus always looked really good. There are some things that are inaccurate about it, like the way that it bends its arms forward, or the presence of all of these osteoderms on its back. And I know what you're going to say. Didn't Carnotaurus have osteoderms? No, Carnotaurus did not have osteoderms. It was once thought that they did. That's why you saw a lot of older portrayals with osteoderms. But it was actually later found out that what they really have are feature scales, which are just in large scales that you can find pebbled across the body. You know, they wouldn't have been in rows like this. So that is still inaccurate. But it's not a bad design. You could very easily tell that it's Carnotaurus. The Chasmosaurus looks pretty good as well. The Cryolophosaurus looks awesome. Not a big fan of the osteoderms, but it still looks really awesome. Deinonychus, in a way, the skull shape and all of that is still outdated, but the feathers are with the new model, the feathers are a really nice touch. And yeah, the same can probably go for a lot of these other creatures that we have here. Like even Parasaurolophus, although I would say that I think the Dominion version is way closer to an accurate Parasaurolophus than the original Jurassic Park version. The original Jurassic Park version was decently accurate for the time. At that time, hadrosaurs were always portrayed with like really thin necks and thinner proportions overall. This one is a little bit more up to date. Its neck is a bit more beefy, probably not as beefy as it should be, but it's closer. And the head shape seems a little bit more in line. Plus, the forelimbs look significantly better, if you ask me. So yeah, I'd say that the Dominion Parasaurolophus is a pretty accurate design too. And the same can go for some others, like maybe Stygimoloch and Pachycephalosaurus. I didn't want to include too many in this because the video would drag on. So I narrowed it down to what I think are some of the most accurate designs in the game. And yeah, again, some of you might disagree with me. Some of you might agree with me. You know, we can all discuss it in the comments down below. But that's pretty much all I have for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching and have an awesome day.